Thank you. I'm so excited that you guys are all here. I'm a little nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people. So I'm going to try to talk nice and slow. I gave my friends Linda and Lori here work with me at FACS, so they're going to give me the cue to slow down. And back there, you can do the same. Just do one of these if I start to go too fast. So I'm calling this looking at behavior through the mental health lens. But really quick, I know she asked who's here from special education, but I'm wondering how many of you are in early childhood? Okay. And then how many of you are in community, more of a community setting, early childhood? Okay, so everybody is special education, early childhood? And then kindergarten? Yep, I was kindergarten. And then first grade? And no second grade. We have one, you have a kind of first grade? And then second grade? Okay. All right, I just wanted to know who my audience is so I can cater it to you. All right, so, well, let me start, and this is how I start all of my presentations. Am I loud enough? Okay, give me one of these. We're doing a lot of signals. If you can't hear me, do one of these. So I'm Annie Hoff. I'm the Early Childhood Mental Health Manager at FACS. FACS works a lot in Dakota County in early childhood. We work with all of the school districts in early childhood. So let me give you a little overview of me. So these are my lovely children. I have a Chloe and a Carson. Let me get out of the way so you can see them. Carson is 5. He's in kindergarten, and Chloe is in 3rd grade. And that's my husband, Marty. And the reason I show these pictures is that the information I'm going to share with you today is called conscious discipline. How many of you have ever heard of conscious discipline? You have, okay. Have you gone to a training or you've just heard of it? Okay. So I started my career as a therapist working with adults with borderline personality disorder. And then once I had children, I decided I wanted to work with children. Adults, just so a little mental health something, people with borderline personality disorder are people that have a really difficult time regulating their emotions, and there's a really high burnout with the therapists that work with that population. It's a hard population to work with. And so I really wanted to be part of the prevention. And so I got a job as a school social worker, and I realized that all of my adult cognitive behavioral techniques were not working with little kids, so I went back and got my play therapy certification. And along that journey came across this wonderful model called conscious discipline. So I went to this week-long training, and I am forever a different person. I am a better mother, I am a better therapist, I am a better human being. And so I love to talk about this with anyone who's willing to listen. So I am thrilled that you are all here willing to listen. And just so you know a little bit, in Dakota County right now, especially in early childhood, there are several districts that have really jumped on board with this, and it's really exciting because it really addresses the need for early intervention and really looking at kids through a different lens and being aware of our own stuff and how that impacts our work with kids. So I do it for these guys. That's why I thought I'd show that picture. So here's my plan for today. First, I'm going to take a deep breath because I can see that I can feel myself getting nervous. We're going to watch a video called The 5 Road Signs to Bullying and to Creating a Bully, because it's all relevant to where this is headed. And then I'm just going to do a very brief overview of what conscious discipline is. And then I'm going to, the majority of today is going to be talking about the conscious discipline brain state model. And then we're going to, if we have time at the end, we're going to watch some more videos that I think will help give you some tools and ideas of things you can do to bring back to your classroom. And then I hope to have time for questions at the end too. There's going to be a little bit of dancing, just a little bit, but it's important and it'll be fun. It'll be good for our brains. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show a video, and it's only 10 minutes. So get yourself in a spot that you can see. Here we go.
After the shock of another school shooting, have you ever wondered how on earth did we not see the signs? How could parents, family members, teachers, and neighbors not have seen a problem in the making? Our best hope of preventing school violence comes from understanding the bully-victim dynamic. Bullying is a relationship issue. Together, let's see how to make a bully from scratch. It takes years to make a bully. In fact, all bullies start out as victims. A child doesn't wake up one day and decide, I think I'll be a bully, any more than a child wakes up and says, I think I'll be a victim. Becoming a bully is a journey of specific life experiences starting at birth. There are road signs along the way that signal intervention is needed. We must know the signs to effectively derail the bully life path. To do this, it's important to distinguish between normal aggression and bullying. Children no longer say, "He teased me" or "she hit me." Instead announce, "I was bullied at school." Even a president of the United States, Barack Obama, says he was bullied for having big ears. He probably was indeed teased, but not bullied. Bullying is a specific and very serious type of aggression. Let's travel together on a 5-stop journey into the heart of how a bully is made so we can learn to see the signs. Missing them can be deadly. We will start at the beginning of human life, years before you might have thought. Step into our transporter. First stop, the mother's womb. Let's imagine these children-to-be represent all the kids in the world. Of these children, a handful will experience some form of prenatal stressors and develop a difficult temperament. These little ones are hard to soothe and have trouble sleeping or eating. You love them deeply, but they're a little hard to fall in love with. When you play peekaboo, there are no smiles or giggles. These children turn and squirm away. A parent at this time might feel like, "You've been crying since you were born. I tried blowing raspberries and you cried. I tried rocking you and you cried. I can't handle this anymore. Just shut up." This parent is really saying, "I love you, but I'm having a hard time falling in love with you. Help. This is so hard." Some of these children with difficult temperaments will have very out-of-control behaviors. They're defiant toddlers, and later, hard-to-manage 3-year-olds. Feeling powerless, parents resort to chronic, punitive discipline that victimizes their own children. "I will count to 3. You better get over here or else. 1, 2. By age 3, we start to see 2 different types of victims emerging. One is aggressive, defiant, and hot-tempered. The other is passive, acquiescent, and anxious. Let's get back into the transporter. Our next stop is preschool and kindergarten. During this time, our children find themselves in more complex social settings like school. They have trouble playing with others from a lack of basic social skills and the ability to regulate their own behavior. Other children often exclude them, finding them boring or being frightened by their aggression and outburst. Teachers don't have the skills either, and further compound the problem by using their own exclusion strategies. "Go to timeout. Go sit in that chair now." These kids are emotionally reactive when things don't go their way. The aggressive child goes from upset to rage in seconds. The passive child gives up just as quickly. Since they cannot self-regulate, they are unable to learn appropriate social skills. The aggressive child hits, grabs, and takes what he wants. The passive child allows others to hit and grab without saying a word. Their chronically stressed brain creates mental distortions in the way they perceive themselves and others. The aggressive child sees hostile intent in others' everyday actions. The passive child believes he should be treated poorly and expects poor treatment from others. Adults tend to see the aggressive child as mean and the passive child as unmotivated or lazy. These judgments blind us to the road signs, allowing the aggressive child to move one step closer to becoming a bully and the passive child in becoming a victim. All aboard, let's continue on to 1st and 2nd grade. Things get worse as our children move further into the world of friends. All human beings require a sense of belonging. These children, desperate for connection, are often pushed to the side by classmates, teachers, and schools. They have been excluded from connections with others since birth. This immense social pain actually involves the same pathways in the brain as physical pain in the body. Somewhere during this time, the social pain of rejection becomes so great the brain undergoes significant changes. For both bullies and victims, the brain compensates for a life of painful disconnection. Buckle in as we continue to see what happens to these children ages 8 through 12. Both our bully and victim are still searching for connection and a place to belong. Since the mainstream tends to exclude them, they move towards one another. The bully says, "You're mine, I own you, now do what I say or else." And the victim provokes or acquiesces because a bad connection seems better than no connection at all. Both our bully and victim are now immune to consequences because they simply don't care. One of the changes their brain has gone through is to shut down the caring system. Adults might threaten with, "You're going to get kicked out of school." "Go ahead, kick me out, I don't care." "We are going to call your parents." "So what? I don't care." "We're going to take away computer privileges." "I don't care. I don't like the computer anyway." "We are going to ground you, spank you, send you to alternative school." "Yeah, so what?" Since the part of the brain responsible for the motivation to care is literally turned off, there is no punishment or discipline that will help. Rewiring this system can only occur through connections with others. When children say, "I don't care," their brain is unconsciously saying, "I don't feel cared for by anyone, anywhere." Our final stop brings us to the teenage years. Continually trying so hard to belong, the bully may join a gang of tough guys or hook up with some mean girls. They perfect their craft through cyberbullying, spreading rumors, physical action, and day-to-day threats. At this point, the bully is now a dangerous teenager whose brain has changed in two very significant ways. The brain has become programmed to biochemically experience pleasure from hurting others. The bully's internal pharmacy provides him with opioids that act like morphine to deaden the pain of his life journey. The teenager is literally addicted to causing others pain. The brain is immune to rejection and ostracism. This teenager no longer feels a need to belong or care. The skill of empathy is offline. Our victim, on the other hand, lacks the internal pharmacy that a bully has to provide him with relief. The teenager is prone to suffering quietly and then exploding. The pain can become so intense that he may kill himself or others, as we have seen play out in school shootings. Bullying a bully with tough measures and excluding him with no-tolerance policies compounds the problem. We are systematically applying the exact treatment that created the bully in the first place, and then expecting it to help. Effective discipline consists of two parts: the slow building of bonds and healthy relationships, and the quick strategies needed in the heat of the moment when conflict occurs. Bully prevention and intervention can only occur in the slow stages of relationship building. Our awareness of the 5 road signs and how a bully is made will save countless lives. Conscious discipline has effective, researched interventions for every road sign along the way. Join us on a journey to a better world. We can walk this road together. Are you willing?
So, I start with that because it's kind of a powerful video, but also so much of this is that we have to do something differently, because what we're doing right now as educators and as mental health people isn't working, because school shootings continue, and so that's in a much larger, broader level. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit about, before I do that, sorry, I want you to check in with yourself. Just kind of, now that we've watched kind of a powerful video, I want you to just to be kind of, all right, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? Like 1 meaning, oh my gosh, seriously, I have to listen to this person talk for the next 2.5 hours. And 10 meaning like you are ready and you're super excited. Just think in your head, don't tell me, because it might cause me some anxiety. Just kidding, if I hear. Okay, now what we're gonna do, I'm sorry, I'm trying really hard to be DJ Jazzy Techie girl here. We're gonna stand up. Stand on up, guys. This is how, one of the programs we have in my early childhood program is we have a day treatment, a preschool day treatment program with these lovely little love bugs that help me learn every day more and more about the brain and trauma and behavior and whoa, all that fun stuff. And you'll hear me reference them a lot today. But this is how we start every day. We do the Brain Smarts song. So we're all gonna do it right now. You're gonna love it. If I can get it to work. Here we go. Here we go, ready? You're gonna go hands to the left. Hands to the left. Am I doing it right? Yeah. Hands up high. Now you're gonna go low. Hands down low. It gets harder. You're gonna go left and right. Get into it, Linda, come on. This is helping us calm our minds. Okay, you're gonna go up and down. Okay, elbow to elbow. Thumb to thumb. Knee to knee. Toes to toes. Partner up. Elbows with a friend. Touch thumbs. Touch knees with a friend. Touch toes. Okay, back up. Ready? Hop on one foot, or you can just stand on one. Now do the other one. Woo! Now try to cross your feet and get your hands moving. Okay, listen up. Just try to balance on one. Try the other one. Now we're going to crisscross. Ready? Okay, listen up. Point to your brain. Find your heart. Woo. Hands up high. Oh, by your side. Sorry. Hands way up high. Put your hands low. Now go lower. How low? Now you gotta shake your hips. You did it. Now you can sit on your chair, or you can sit down. You don't have to sit crisscross applesauce. Woo! All right, so, whew. That is Kindness Counts. It's one of their CDs. There's another one called It Starts in the Heart, and Brain Boogie Boosters. They're fun, and they're really interactive. Whew, I'm a little winded from that jumping. Okay, so now check yourself again. Is your number a little bit higher? So we did a couple of things during that song. I really need to catch my breath. Whew! We crossed the midline of our body. We connected. You're gonna hear me talk a lot about connections on the outside, build connections on the inside, and it wires your brain for willingness and impulse control. So things like that when you start your day with songs like that, that's gonna get your kids more ready for learning. I know that's probably not news to you guys. You're all teachers. Okay, so one more thing before we get started. I want you to take a deep breath. Think about that number you're at, and I want you to make some sort of a mental commitment today. Like, I am going to commit to you that I will do my very best to slow down and to own my anxiety and try to go with it and breathe. Okay, so this is I have it in the wrong mode. Sorry about that. From current slide. Okay, so conscious discipline as a model is not a curriculum. It is a social emotional program. And really the way I think of it is a paradigm. And it's the research for conscious discipline. I notice everyone's looking in their books. So the slides that I'm using are copyrighted, so I couldn't give you a handout of the whole PowerPoint. So these are the handouts that Becky Bailey does. She's the person that does conscious discipline. And it's a 2-day training for all of this. So what you're going to do, what I'm going to talk about today is going to be starting on page 4. And right now, this isn't on there. Yeah, the CDs are, it starts in the heart, kindness counts, and brain boogie booster. And I will give you guys website information at the end, which has all of this information. So, but what I really want to point out today is that, so conscious discipline is sort of this social emotional program that at the foundation of it has something called the brain state model, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So what I've done at FACS is I've taken, and there's a lot of, she talked about in the video how there's research to support that when you implement conscious discipline, it decreases aggressive behavior, it builds morale, and has all this great research to support it. Well, all of the research is actually done in school, in a school setting. And what I've done is I've taken this school model and I've modified it in a mental health setting. So sometimes when I do these trainings, I forget to say that. And then people go back and they're like, well, we can't really do that because it's therapy. Nothing I'm asking you to do today is therapy. This is all a school-based model, just to clarify that. So what we're going to do today is talk about the brain state model. What I want you to notice is, so in this model, they've got the brain state model, and then they have these 7 powers of conscious adults. And then we have this idea of building the school family. And at the very top of this triangle are the skills. And the reason I want to point that out to you is very, very often when you come to a workshop, they jump to skills. So here's something you should do in your classroom. And I know that a lot of districts, all districts have a different, they have different things like zones of regulation, or do you guys do zones of regulation here? Yeah, zones of regulation, or second step, or different social emotional intervention. And what I want to say to you is that's great, continue using those. So this is absolutely not instead of. This is going to give you a lens from which to view those great interventions you're already doing. So just want to do a little disclaimer there. Whew. Okay, here I go. So we're going to talk about the conscious discipline brain state model. So becoming aware of your own thoughts and feelings is a major accomplishment. That's Schubert. So we have to take back our power. We have to do things differently. Can you all see over there? I see people going. Scoot so you guys can see, because I want people to be able to see what's going on. So a lot of us, we've been conditioned more to care about what everyone else is thinking, what everyone else is doing, and if these kids would just behave, we would be okay, right? If they would just do what we told them to do. If we could control the children and they follow directions and they could listen, then everything would be fine. If the world would go my way, I could be happy. Like, I was on Highway 62 this morning, and it was a parking lot, and I'm running late, and I'm like, really, if these cars could just hurry up, I'd be fine. Everything would be all right today. And I wouldn't be so nervous, right? I'm just kidding. So we've come to consciously or unconsciously believe that if kids would change, or if the cars would drive faster, or if my husband would listen better, that everything would be fine, right? I could finally feel safe and loved. So the resulting belief is that to feel safe and loved, I must control others, which is not true. So we're going to learn a different way. We're going to learn to shift. So in order to do that, we need some volunteers, and I've already selected some. How long do you think? Okay. So you don't have to come up for a little while, but you can come up right now, but and then you can sit down for a long time. Okay.
Wait,
sorry.
So do you want me to come
So you can come up now, and then you get to sit down for a long time. You're my emotional state, and you are my survival state, Lori. Oh, I have a quick question. How do I show the notes I have? Like, is there a presenter view? I should have had it that way. It's fine. Never mind. So basically, the brain state model, what I'm going to show you right now, this slide is all about that. It's really based on the brain, and it's based on neuroscience, and it's based on information from like Bruce Perry, Daniel Siegel, and different people that have some scientific background. But what Becky Bailey has done that's just beautiful is she's taken a really complex thing like the brain, and she's put it into layman's terms. And so, like, when we work with families in early childhood, we're teaching the parents about the brain and about what's going on in the brain. And so for the purposes of that, what she's done is she's broken it down into 3 states of being. Now, this is, of course, not to say that there's only 3 parts to the brain. This is just for demonstration purposes and to help us better understand what's going on in kids' brains, what's going in our brains, so that we can respond appropriately. Okay, so for the purposes of today, we are going to talk about our friend, the survival state. Come stand up here, survival state. Stop right here, survival state. The survival state is always asking the question, am I safe? Am I safe? And then we have our emotional state. Stay. And the emotional state is always asking the question, am I loved? Am I loved? And then we have the executive state, and the executive state is asking the question, what can I learn from this, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about these three states of being. Now, you may sit down, you may sit down, you may not. Are you safe? No. You are safe. You are safe. Don't worry. You're safe. Okay, so when she talks about the brain state model, she's talking about which part of the brain is predominantly online and like what cognitive processing, what emotions, what skills they have in that state. Okay, so we already talked a little bit about this. So you're the survival state. Survival state. Okay, so survival state. From 0 to, so babies are born with their survival state online. From 0 to 15 months, more or less, that's the part of the brain that is predominantly online. And the reason that is extremely important to know is that, you know, in the video we just watched, she showed all those pregnant moms and talked about the stress that some of these kids are born with a temperament, right? That is because the only part of the brain that's online is the safety part of the brain, which is the brainstem, okay? The brainstem is always asking the question, am I safe, am I safe? So when you have a new baby, how many of you have have children? Okay, so a lot of you have children. So when you have a baby and you look at your baby and your baby smiles at you, what do you do back to your baby? You smile back, right? And then the baby will smile back, and if the baby goes, you're gonna go back at them, right? And there's this back and forth beautiful energy. And what Daniel Hughes calls that's the dance of attunement. And that's this wonderful dance where you're picking up you're reading the baby's cues and they're reading your cues, and it's this back and forth, back and forth. And what that does over time is it gives the baby the message, you're safe, you're safe. And in addition to that, if a baby cries, what do? You pick them up, and as a parent, you probably know the difference between, oh, that's a hungry cry, or that's a scared cry, or that's a I'm wet cry, or that's a I'm sick cry, right? You start to kind of know there's different cries. That's because you're attuned with your baby, and you know what's going on, right? So some kids, some babies, they don't get that. Some babies, there is no attunement, and it could be because the mom has maybe postpartum depression, and her face is like this. And so maybe she's picking up the baby and she's taking care of the baby, but if her face is like this the whole time and there's no back and forth, is that baby given the message, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe? No. Or let's say there's domestic violence and it's going on right in front of the baby. The baby doesn't have the higher centers of the brain to say, oh, wait, that's not happening to me, that's just happening to my mom. Right? Are you safe? No. The message is you're not safe, or inconsistently, right? Okay, so I'll come back to that. So, oh, here's the other part. See, I wrote these notes and I forgot. Keep your stuff away. Keep your tools away. So the other part about the brainstem is it's our arousal system. So in a healthy arousal system, it's like this. Kinda. It's supposed to be an even heartbeat, right? So let's say there's domestic violence. That's what happens, right? That's the cortisol, that's the adrenaline, that's all those scary hormones, right? Which is really important. Like, let's say you're driving on the highway and all of a sudden a car drives into you. You want to have that fight, flight to get out of the way, right? And your adrenaline goes like this, and it's a survival. That's why it's called the survival state. Our bodies need that, our brains need that. But for some children, it gets messed up because there's so many situations that happen during those first years of life that might impact their safety and all of their safety chemicals in their brain. And so they come into your classroom, they walk in the door like this. And then what do you think they do? Well, I'll tell you what they're gonna do. We'll get there. So the survival state is like this. When danger is perceived, roar! You have 3 skills. You could fight me, you could and give in, I give up, I surrender, or you could defend, or you could withdraw, run away. So really you have 3 main skills in this state, and it is fight, flight, surrender. Those are your 3 skills that you have in the survival state. Now, looking at this wolf, this could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people depending on what your experiences are. For example, if you grew up in a home where you were yelled at and spanked for spilling milk, if your child spills milk, you're going to go here. You're going to go straight to fight or flight. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that in a few minutes. But basically, that's what happens. Your cortisol goes. So, survival state, what does that look like in kids? Well, same kid, he comes into school like this. He's in a survival state. Who knows what happened at home? He comes in and somebody pushes him the wrong way. And he's not going to stab him, but he might push, right? What do kids do? What might be survival state things you might see in your classroom? Punching. What else? Kicking, yelling. Any chair throwers in the room today? Yeah, right? So any runners? Yeah, that's a survival state response. Fight, flight, I'm out of here. Transition, I'm out of here. Right? Those are the kids we get called in on. We need help, we don't know what to do, they're running out of the room, they're throwing chairs, it came out of nowhere, I don't know what happened. This person asked if they could sit next to him and they freaked out and I don't know what happened. Or people that rip up the room, those are kids in a rage. Those are kids that are beyond their survival state. So they're in fight or flight. Oh, whoopsies. So something really important to consider is this one. Many of us as children were punished for not having the skills we needed. Many of us were put into our survival state. So basically what happens is if you have a strong enough punishment, eventually kids will comply. So if you take everything away from them, if you take away, let's say so-and-so gets in trouble for throwing something at school and goes home and then the parents take everything away. They might comply eventually, right? We can make kids comply to a point of surrender. Have they ever learned to deal with being upset? Did they ever learn that's really, really important skill of what do you do when your body gets so upset that you can't handle it anymore? No. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about in a minute. All right. Okay. So what happens more often than not in these young children is that they do go here. And that's why people think that really, really firm discipline works. Like a lot of the parents we work with, it's really hard to help them understand that, oh goodness, you're actually causing more damage. And I'm going to talk about that in one slide, why that's causing more damage. Because what happens, and it talked a little bit about this in the video we just watched, is if you're constantly putting a child into their survival state to comply, those hormones, the stress hormones of cortisol and adrenaline, are going to kind of mess up the feel-good chemicals in their brain. Does that make sense? Kind of a crazy something to think about. So what happens then is these kids get these out of balance dopamine systems. So dopamine is this feel-good chemical that says, Yahoo, pay attention, this is important, Yahoo! Well, what happens is over time, if we're constantly put into our punishment, that part of that pleasure part of your brain gets kind of shut off. And that's why and then these kids over time end up with these things, the bullying, anxiety, depression, ADHD. I cannot tell you how many times kids are misdiagnosed. Kids that have experienced trauma are diagnosed as having ADHD or autism or other things that, and the reason that that's so dangerous is that the treatment is so different. You're going to look at trauma from a very different lens, and you're going to treat that as a mental health person from a different lens. So you all as educators, you have kind of that first conversation with parents about kids that can't pay attention and stuff like that. And a lot of times it's something else that's causing it. So let's go back to this kid in your classroom. So let's say Lori was in my classroom and she just pushed Linda. Okay, so she's in her survival state. So she's like this, woo! And I'm coming in, and in my house, I got punished for pushing. So I come over, I go, we don't push in this classroom. What were you thinking? What's the rule on pushing? Say, am I safe? Am I safe? What's the rule on pushing?
Am I safe?
So all she can, at that point, her only skills are, she has 3. She can fight me, she can punch me, she could run away, flight, or she could finally give in. Okay, I'm sorry. Right? Have I ever taught her the skill of, you were really mad at Linda and you didn't have the words, let's not push. Have I helped her regulate? No. I probably just, it'll probably get to the point where I either send her to the principal's office, get her out of here, or she'll comply. Okay, fine, I'm sorry. But then she's never learned the skill, right? Thank you, survival state. You'll be coming up again.
I don't know if I want to. Might not be safe.
So think a little bit about, I want you to make, I don't know if you know what a mind map is, but think about kind of what you've learned just about that survival state. Okay, so I want you can sit down. You're going to come up in a minute. So think about the 3 skills survival state has. What are they? Fight, flight, surrender. So what might that look like in an adult? So like I might have enough self-control that if I'm in my survival state, I might not punch someone. I mean, if I were really scared and I were like threatened, like somebody's going to hurt me, I might punch them. But like if I'm really angry at, trying to think of what's an example that might put me in my brainstem. Running late and yeah. Honestly, if you all started talking to each other and like not listening to me and I'm standing up here and I probably would get myself worked up into a brain state and then I might start yelling. Actually, I have a good story for you. So when I did this conscious discipline thing, so there's like a week-long training and then you go back and you do an advanced training. And so the first year, or the second training was in February of this last year. And so it's looking at these powers deeper and really feeling your feelings, and it's very, being aware of your emotions and all that stuff. And so the whole week she talked about, what does it feel like to be scared and what goes on in your body and and so the last day she said, okay, we're gonna practice. We're gonna have you get scared and we're gonna practice. So I went to this thing all by myself and I didn't really know anybody else that was there. I was the only one from Minnesota that went, but a lot of people went with like their teams from school. So I kind of felt a little not really, included, and it's hard to be the only one at a big conference like that, and it's a pretty intense, like, share your feelings kind of conference. So anyway, on the last day, they have us, she's like, we're gonna do a ropes course today. And this isn't like the ropes course that you do the trust fall, that, it's like this hype. No, this is 30 feet up in the air, you get harnessed up, ropes course, and you had the choice of 3 things that you could do. So one of them was like a catwalk, but you got harnessed and you just had to walk across the catwalk like this, and it looked the easiest of all the 3. So I did that, climbed up to the top of the catwalk, and I got to the top and I froze. And I was like this, and I couldn't move, and I was free. I was like, oh, so here I am in my survival state, right? I'm in fright, I'm just frozen. And the guy, because I was harnessed up, there was a guy, is it called a belay, that's at the bottom? And he's standing there, and all the people that don't know me that well, my name's Annie, by the way, they're like, way to go, Amy! Yay, Amy! Come on, Amy, you can do it. And I was like, my name is Annie! And I started yelling at them because the survival state has 3 skills. So I was in fright, and then I moved into I'm fighting you, I'm yelling at you and screaming at you. But then the guy that was holding my thing on the bottom, he goes, put your right foot in front of your left. And I'm like, what? Anyway, so I finally was like, okay. And I did it, and I got through it, and yay, it was great. But what was really interesting is I went through, I could see, here I am. At the time I didn't know I was in my survival state. But in retrospect, looking back, I'm like, there I was in my survival state. And it's helpful to remember that when we're dealing with kids in our day treatment that are running around the room and trying to tear everything up, that they need safety and they need an assertive voice. They need someone to say, put your right foot in front of the other. You are safe, I will help you. And really being, and we'll talk a little bit more about what each state needs, but the survival state needs safety. It does not need you to give them skills and all that, okay? And we'll talk more about that in a little bit when I get my whole brain up here. Does anyone have questions about the survival state before I move on? We will come back to it. Okay, so Linda, come up here. This is Linda. She's going to be my emotional state. My emotional state that's always asking the question, am I loved? Am I loved? Do I fit in? Am I loved? This is the, we talked about 0 to 15 months being the brainstem. This is around the age of 15 months to about 3. So those of you that work in early childhood, these are your kids. They are little limbic systems. And the limbic system is also the same as the unconscious. I don't know if you ever heard the Freud, talk about the unconscious. That's basically what it is. It's this emotional part of your brain that's all these unconscious things that happen all the time and things that go through your head. So, whoopsies, that's not what I meant to do. So the emotional state comes online when the world doesn't go our way. So have you ever had a day that it's just not going your way? You're in your emotional state. So think about what skills you have there, because that's where we're headed. The days that the world isn't going your way. So it stores highly charged emotional memories. I don't know if you've ever had a situation like when you were in grade school that was really bad, really awful. Like you remember every detail of it, because this part of your brain remembers things and everything like it. And like I said, it comes online with the nose. The developmental need is connection, and it's asking the question, am I loved? So in our emotional state, our alarm bell goes off, like something happens, ding, 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 and our buttons are pushed. And then our CD-ROM comes online. And what I mean by that is this, that we are all given this lovely gift of a CD-ROM from our parents. Now someday, I always say this, like pretty soon this CD-ROM reference isn't going to work anymore because people aren't going to know what it is. Everyone knows what a CD-ROM is still, right? So the idea is that kind of your hard drive, right? Like that. So we all, here you go. You get this from your parents. How many of you have ever like maybe been in your emotional state and all of a sudden it sounds like your mother coming out of your mouth? Yeah? Yes. Yes. There it is, because that's your CD-ROM, and it's unconscious, so you can't help it. We all have it. We can't change our CD-ROM. It is what it is. However, and the reason it is because this amygdala, which is the part of our brain that says, okay, how are we going to process this information? Is it going to put it in our survival state, or is it something we can handle? And it's going to help you decide how you're going to respond to a situation. So it remembers fearful situations and anything like it, right? So here's the deal. We all run around with buttons. Our buttons being pushed all the time by kids. And what my buttons are probably different than Linda's and hers and her. We all have different buttons. And it's directly related to whatever your CD-ROM is. So for example, for me, if someone came in here today and said, guess what, Annie, we're going to cancel the presentation. We are all playing competitive volleyball, and we're counting on you. That would put me in my emotional state, because that does not sound like fun to me. Whereas other of you might be like, that sounds awesome. Great, let's go play competitive volleyball. But somewhere in my head, I'm not a very athletic person, and so that would really cause me quite a bit of anxiety. So what happens is something happens, our buttons get pushed, our CD-ROM comes online, and it kind of continues in that cycle. And then you respond in ways that are just like your parent. Your parent, not necessarily your parents. So what might this look like? It might look like this. If you come from a home of yellers, like I do, there it is. You're going to yell at your kids, right? If you come from guilt, blaming, withdrawing from things, absolutely. Attention seeking. So when we talk about kids that are alienating their peers, or kids that have no social skills, those are kids that can't connect. Those are kids that are kind of functioning in their emotional state much of the time. Oh wait, I'm going to come back to that. So let's say, for example, you're going to say, am I loved, am I loved? So let's say same situation, that instead of you didn't hit her this time, but you call her stupid.
You're stupid.
No, she calls you that.
Oh, you're stupid.
What are you doing? We don't talk like that in here. You say, what is our rule about when we talk to our friends? Is that how we talk in here?
Am I loved?
Okay, so if I keep kind of coming after her, asking her the skill of what is our skill, what should we be doing, what is our skill, where is she going to eventually go?
I'm not.
She's giving the message she's not loved, and she's going to end up in her survival state. And she might end up, and the survival state has 3 skills. And what are they? Fight, flight. So she might run away. Okay, fine. Or she might surrender. Okay, fine. Or she might hit me or throw a chair at me. I don't know. Okay, so here's some examples. So if you were brought up in a home, or you are in a home that you scream when you're in your emotional state, guess what your children learns? Your children learns? Is that proper English? If you grow up in a world where you hit, I have to say, and I don't mean this in the judgmental way, but I was out with one of my friends, and her daughter hit her sister, and the mom went over and she's like, she hit her and she goes, "How do you like that?" She's like, that's the only way she's going to learn. And I'm thinking, learn what? To hit when you're mad? I didn't say that though. She was not asking. She was in her emotional state, and I can't teach her new skills if she's in her emotional state. I can just validate. So there she is hitting her baby. But if you teach connection, compassion, then that's what your kids learn. If you teach rage, then your kids learn that too. So what does this state need? So the emotional state needs connection and validation. So think of a day that you've had a bad day. If I go home to my husband and I say, "Oh my gosh, I am so stressed out from work. I'm overwhelmed. I can't balance everything. I'm going to lose my mind. I don't know what's going on." If he were to say to me, "You really just need to prioritize," what might I do? Fight, flight, right? Because it's invalidating. But if he were to say to me, "I know, you work so hard. It's really hard for you, isn't it?" It doesn't mean he agrees with me. It doesn't mean that he's saying boo-hoo for you. He's just validating my experience, right? That's what this state needs. So same situation. She calls Lori stupid.
You're stupid.
If I were, first we would go to victim first. So I would check in with Lori, did you like that, blah, blah, blah. But then I'd go back to her and I'd say, "Wow, you were really mad at Lori and you didn't have the words." And she might say, "Yeah, she took my toy from me," or "Yeah, she told me she wouldn't be my friend." And then I would validate that experience for her. Oh, it's really hard when somebody doesn't want to be your friend. And then we're going to talk in a minute about the executive state, and the hope would be that we could get her upshifted enough that we could teach her the skill of how do you communicate what you need to your friend? And the thing is these kids are not getting this at home. They're not getting, so they need to get it here, and they need it a lot of times. You have to do it 2,000 times before a kid can really get it in the right context. I know, 2,000 times. Okay, sit down, but you're going to come back up. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is I want you to find a person next to you. You don't have to find someone with the closest color hair, because I think that'd be too tricky. But I want you to think about your own upbringing, if you're willing, and talk a little bit about how people in your life dealt with stress and when the world wasn't going their way. And this is absolutely not to villainize parents, because I have wonderful parents, and I think I'm a wonderful mom, but I'm also sometimes not. So it's just a part about being aware of what's going on. So for just about 5 to 10 minutes, just talk with each other and talk a little bit and think about and talk about what was that like, because it's relevant to where we're going next. So the next state I'm going to talk about is the executive state, which is the part of the state, this sort of part of the state. This is the part of the brain that is like the boss of the brain. So think of your own brain. What kind of CEO do you got going on in there? Do you have a micromanaging boss? Do you have a supportive, mentoring boss? Or do you have a boss in name only, like an absentee boss? The executive state needs problem solving and solutions. This is where kids can learn new skills when they are in their executive state. So some of the functions in this, like I said, is it's going to be where you're brilliant. You get your brilliant when you are in your executive state. Oh, I gave you, here, these are your 2 skills.
Oh, okay.
You have 2 skills. You have brilliance and wisdom. What else do you got? Flip it over, girl. You're a relaxed alert, which is the optimal learning state. You have your executive skills, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about oops in just a minute. But basically, you can own your oops, and it's not going to dysregulate you. You can own your mistakes. Okay? Way to go, executive state. Stay there. But the executive state is asking the question, what can I learn from this? So survival state, am I safe? Emotional state, am I loved? Executive state, what can I learn from this? Okay? So here's why this state's so important. So this is the part of the brain that is about the prefrontal cortex is right here. So the cortex is the thinking part. The cortex is here. It's the thinking part of your brain. The prefrontal cortex is up here. It starts developing at age 3-ish and doesn't stop developing until 25, 24, 26, somewhere in there. It says on here, I think 24, but I've heard different. Bruce Perry says 26. And the reason that that's so important is look at all of the skills that this part of the brain has. We have attention, time management, organization, prioritization, working memory, impulse control. How many of us have children with impulse control issues? Well, they're underdeveloped prefrontal cortexes. So yes, they have impulse control issues. Flexibility, empathy. So empathy is a prefrontal cortex skill. So it's something we have to teach children. Metacognition, this is a biggie, and this is one of the last skills that develops in the prefrontal cortex. That is that ability to think about your thoughts. So if you ask a 4-year-old, what were you thinking when you were doing that? And they're going to be like, I don't know. Well, they really don't know. Goal achievement and initiation. I don't know why there's this thing on here. I don't know. Oh, well.
It's for the smart board.
Oh, okay. Well. So to have a successful life, we need to have strong executive skills, right? You need to be able to have time management skills and all of that. Something else that's really interesting, a little side note, is that I think it's like age 7 or 8 is when we start to have thoughts going through our head. Like right now, we're all sitting here and we're thinking, there's thoughts. There's lots of thoughts going through, she's talking really fast, or oh, this is really interesting, or whatever. We all have thoughts, this constant dialogue going on in our head. Well, kids under the age of 7 don't have that. They think in pictures, which is why play is so cool and play therapy is so cool, because that's how kids work through their stuff. They don't have that metacognition. They don't have that ability to think about their thoughts because they don't have a constant dialogue going on in their head. It's just a little something I thought I'd share. So, see, it says 24 years here. How many of you, no, I won't say it, never mind. Okay, well, I was just thinking, part of what we're seeing a growing trend into is just younger parents. A lot of the parents we work with are 20, 19, 18, 17, and they don't have the skills they don't have developed prefrontal cortexes either. And another thing is, okay, now I need my whole brain to stand up. Another thing that's really common is, so you're in the middle emotional state, and you're over here survival state. So think about I'm just thinking at it more from a mental health perspective more than anything right now, but if you are a mother, right? Or let's say you're not a mother, so you don't have any kids yet, but you didn't ever get this. You never got the safety that you're safe, you're safe, you're safe. There's still this longing and desire to have that and to have the connection and to have that. And so a lot of times those people get pregnant and they have babies of their own and they can't offer what they don't have. And so we see this cycle and more and more I'm seeing that. And when you talk about why is it that kids are getting harder? Do you all agree? My goodness, every year they're younger and it's harder. And it's not, and I really think that's why. I think that people are, and how many clients do we have, ladies, who are pregnant that have, no business having babies because they can't take care of themselves. But it's like they're fulfilling this need for this experience that they never had, and then they don't know how to do it. So our hope is that if we can help them be aware of what they didn't get, and that's why a lot of in mental health, and I think they're doing a little of this in schools even, we're really being pushed to look at trauma-informed practice, helping people have awareness about their own stuff and how that's impacting them now. Because we can't lend what we don't have. We can't help nourish, isn't the word I'm looking for, but I'm going to use it. Nurture, thank you, the executive state of children if we don't have our own, right? So, here's an example. A child pushes another child out of the way to get a seat next to his friend. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot, guys. I have to give you something. I meant to get these out. What?
I don't know if I like that.
Oh, you're going to like it. So here's the lovely thing, is that we all have a lens from which we view behavior as well. Dun, dun, dun. These are your lenses. This is the view. This is the view you have. So, if a child pushes another child out of the way to get a seat next to his friend, if we were viewing it from this lens, we would look at it as, that little rat, he needs this. This is the last time he's done it in my room. He's out of here. He needs to pay for what he did. Because we're coming at it from a fight, flight, surrender. Really, we're fighting. Get him out of here. I don't want him in my room. I can't handle him, right? That's us coming from our survival state. If we're coming from here, he better say sorry to that kid. He better apologize. We don't throw chairs in this room. Now, is it a good skill to teach a child the skill of apologizing? Yes. But if we're coming at it from the lens of he needs to feel sorry, we're coming at it from our emotional state. Here, we're looking at it from something must have happened. He threw a chair. He's really upset. I wonder how I can help him feel safe in here so he doesn't have to do that. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not holding him accountable, but it means you're coming at it from the lens of how can I help him? So this is really, 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 like, of everything I'm going to talk about, this is, I think, the most important part, is knowing what state we are in. And it's sometimes you don't know when you're here until after. My name is Annie! At that time, I didn't know I was here until after. But the good news is you can choose to do things differently. So I'm going to have you guys just step to the side for 1 second, and then you can put your lens down. Do you have to leave? No. Okay, can you stand over there just for a second? Because you're coming back up. Thank you. Okay, so this is an example of the perception. So, for example, you could look at it as a child pushes another child out of the way to get a seat next to his friend, which you might be like, he's missing some skills. Or you could view it as he intentionally pushed that child out of the way to get a seat, which might be true, by the way. It might be true that he intentionally did it, but if you choose to view it from that lens, your response is going to be different. Child intentionally pushes another kid out of the way to get the seat after being told to stop many times and being sent to timeout. So the way we perceive a situation is going to directly impact the way we respond to a situation. And the way we respond to a situation is directly related to what our buttons are. So if a kid pushing another child out of the way is going to push your button, you're likely going to have this come online. And so part of this is being aware of, oh my goodness, here we go again. What is it? Like for me, whining. This is what happens and I might, unless I catch myself. And what I try really hard to do is take a deep breath, and I'm aware now that that's one of my buttons. That's something that triggers me, and so I have to, and I don't do it every time. There are many times that, whoopsies, I mess up. But I want to do it differently. I'm thinking of my daughter. I don't want to yell at her for whining. Because why are kids whining? Well, maybe or here's another thing. My daughter's 8. Do any of you have 8-year-olds? 7, 8-year-olds? Oh my goodness. Did you know that there is a pruning of the neural pathways in the brain that happens between 7 and 8? So like old coping is not necessarily there anymore. And my daughter is drama. Like there is, and she watches all these shows that they talk like this, like a Valley Girl. And I'm thinking, you're 8. Are you kidding me? And so that, yep, here it is, every day, practice. And so I have to catch myself multiple times a day because I want to react and I want to be like, don't talk like that. That's not how we talk in this house, blah, blah, blah. But am I teaching her how to appropriate? And then so what I do instead when I'm in my executive state is I might model for her the right way to say it, and I might say, Chloe, here's what you said. You said it like this. Mom, move that out of the way. What you want to say is, Mom, can you please move it out of the way? And then she'll correct herself, and it's like she doesn't even realize that she's being a little snot. Oh, whoops, that was my emotional state again coming out. But it is, and that is all my CD-ROM. We did not behave like that in my house growing up. And chances are, if I was snot mouth, I probably got sent to my room or punished to my surrender place. So I never, you know what I mean? So your CD-ROM gets that. Anyway, okay, so come on back, ladies. So you're going to be here, you're in the middle, you're on the end. So, ready? Here's the situation. I'm just going to give you one. I'm going to throw one out there. So, kid comes into school, throws his book bag on the floor, like we do. Sometimes this happens in day treatment where the kids walk in and they throw their jacket on the floor or their backpack and then they go sit down and they just leave it. You pick it up. What state is that child in? Emotional, probably. So if I went up to him, I said, pick up your bag. you can either pick up your jacket or you can, I don't know, what would be 2 choices I might give him? You can pick up your jacket before you sit down, or you can go work somewhere else. And he might choose one of those. But if he doesn't, and I keep saying, you need to pick up your jacket. You may not leave your jacket on the ground. Pick up your jacket. What's eventually going to happen? I'm engaging in a power struggle now, right? What's eventually going to happen? Where's he going to end up? He'll go into survival, and he has 3 skills in survival, and what might that be?
Fine, I'm leaving.
Yeah, he might run away, fine, I'm out of here, or he might throw a chair at me, or he might call me a name, especially in day treatment.
Stupid.
He might call me stupid, or
You're
worse,
an
he might call me some choice names. Right. So when they're here, the survival state needs what? Does anybody remember? It needs safety. So how do you help kids feel safe in the moment? I didn't tell you this. So what they need is, we have something, and it's a slide later, but I'm going to get ahead of myself, sorry. We have something behind our eyeballs called mirror neurons. And what that means is that have you ever been around somebody who's like really anxious? Like if I were really, really, really anxious, pretty soon you're going to feel anxious, right? And it's because we have these things behind our eyeballs called mirror neurons that mirror the state. But if you're around someone who's very calm, like does anyone do yoga? And the leader is always so calm and namaste, and it's because they are being the state they want us to be. But it's the same thing with kids. If you want to be calm, in day treatment we have interns sometimes that are like, you're safe, you're fine, you're safe. And it's like, no they're not, and neither are you, like clearly. Because let's face it, it's scary when kids are throwing chairs. It is absolutely scary. There's no one that's going to get chairs thrown that's like, oh, I can handle it, I'm totally calm. But what you can do is you can take a deep breath and calm yourself down. And what this state needs is safety. So you come in and you're safe. He threw his jacket on the ground, and I'm like, oh, it's okay.
Don't touch me.
Oh yeah, I won't. And I'm going to give you a little space. I see that your face is going like this. You're safe. And then he might get uploaded just enough here where he might tell me I'm stupid. You dummy, I hate you, leave me alone, right? Tell me I'm stupid. Come on, Linda. You're stupid, leave me alone. You gotta
I'm
keep
just
your
thinking
hand.
of the kids in day treatment.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's not what they would say.
No, that's not. The kids in day treatment would swear at me.
Beep and beep.
So when they're there, then I'm validating. You came in, you had a rough morning today. You came in and your face was like this, and you threw your jacket on the ground. Something must have happened. Now, here's the catch. You have to be genuine. You can't be fakey patronizing, because they're totally going to pick up on it. That's another, we're learning, I love our interns, don't get me, but that's another thing is, you're feeling sad. You're feeling sad about this. No, you're sad. Something happened, and try really hard to get behind what's going on, because what you want to do is you want to help them get some language because they're not, my guess is they're not taught, oh, when I'm mad, I just express how I'm feeling. And they're taught that mad is bad. That's a huge, in day treatment, I can't even tell you, we have the safe spots where we talk about feelings and blah, blah. I'm not mad. No, I'm not. That's bad. Like, they think it's bad. How many of us were taught that? As a woman, it's not good to be mad. Oh, you might be the B word, and you don't want that, right? When we all feel mad, and we have to be able to help these kids understand it's okay to be mad. You just can't let anger get a hold of you. You can't let it get you to a place where you're throwing chairs at people. So validating the experience. You came in, you were so mad. Your face was going like this, and you threw your jacket down. Something happened. And they might say, I don't want to talk about it. Or they might say, yeah, I got yelled at on the way here. Or I don't know what they're going to say, but you're going to validate. And then once you validate it, pretty soon you're connected. Pretty soon you might be able to connect them to here. I'm sorry, the emotional state needs touch too. Did you know that? That's how you connect with people. And pretty soon they might be here, and this is where you teach the skill. When you come in, you may not throw your jacket. If you're feeling angry, you can go sit in the safe spot, or you can go sit over here and have a break, or you can come talk to me. You may do any of those 3 things. You seem really mad right now. Or if somebody upset your friend, you could say, look at your friend and say, I don't like it when you blah, 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 blah. Does that make sense? If you try to teach skills to this state, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to end up maybe pushing them to a rage. If you try to teach skills to this state, they're going to feel invalidated. Well, what did you think would happen if you did that? Well, you're going to end up with a kid in their survival state, right? Only when they're here can they learn new skills. And truth be told, even if it's other things they need to learn, like academics, if kids don't feel safe and connected, it's really hard to teach them math and reading and all these other things. So how many of our kids struggle with this? They don't know how to connect to their peers. So this is, now I will tell you, the interventions are like a whole nother training, and we're gonna watch a couple of videos at the end that might give you some tools and ideas, but just in general terms, so thinking in terms of your classroom, the safety things of your classroom, one of the things is the brain is pattern seeking. So having really clear routines, which I know this isn't new information, you guys know that. Having a clear schedule every day, having a picture schedule, even for the kids that are general ed kids that don't have specific needs, because the brain is pattern seeking and kids think in pictures. So if you can have it clearly labeled out. One of the structures of conscious discipline are ways to be helpful cards. You guys can put your hands down. Ways to be helpful cards. And actually, you guys can sit down. I might call you up again, but thank you. And I know you need to leave soon. I'll take your lenses. Ways to be helpful cards. Having visual ways to show you can share, or you can trade or take turns. You may not steal toys from each other. Like having visuals for kids to do that. So that helps with helping kids feel safe, right? Helping kids feel connected, this is the most beautiful one. And this is where I think conscious discipline is different than other curriculums. It's more than just having connection with the teacher and the child, because I think for the most part we're pretty good at that, at creating these connections. But it's for the kids to help create connections with each other. And connections are made through eye contact, touch, being playful, being present. And so creating these different rituals throughout your day that help build those connections among the kids. And then we can talk about the skill stuff too. All right, we're almost going to have a break soon. You guys are being very, very, very good. So the executive state is for problem solving, the emotional state is for connection, and then the survival state is all about safety. So teaching and parenting require that we lend our prefrontal lobes. So what that means is that it requires that we provide children the opportunity to learn impulse control skills, to learn social skills that they're missing. So for example, if somebody grabs a toy away, even in second grade or first grade, grabs a toy away from another kid, you're gonna stop them and you're gonna say, you really wanted the toy and you didn't have the words. You may not steal from them. Let's practice, right? You guys know that stuff, right? So we have to lend our prefrontal lobes. However, we cannot lend what we don't have. If we are viewing their behavior from this lens, they need to feel sorry for what they did. They should know this by now. They should know how to be. I've taught this to them many times. We can't teach them new skills, right? Yeah?
I just have to bring this up because I think one trip up with teachers is we all come from a place of, oh, parents, they screw up because they're never consistent with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So by God, we're going to be consistent. Pick up those blocks, pick up that. And I hope that we address when you let that go, because it's in our being to, if you don't make that restitution happen, that accountability, we're not good teachers.
Right.
By God, we got to make them see our consistency in our methods, but yet what I'm learning about this program is sometimes you've got to let that go because they're not there.
In that moment.
Pick up that shit
Right.
really strong. And
Right.
that's the part I really struggle
Yes.
with, is when it's okay to stick to your guns, even if you're in a place where you're calm. You know, you check yourself, you're calm, but when do you give it up? When the child doesn't have restitution.
So I heard you say things like make them. If make them is in you're here. If you're how can I help them choose to? How can I help them choose to pick the blocks up? So let's say you have a child that was mad because, give me an example of what might keep them from, like you said, it's cleanup time and they say, nope, I'm not doing it. Okay, so let's say it's cleanup time and you say, nope, I'm not doing it. So the child says, nope, I'm not doing it. What state are they in? They're in their emotional state, right? So if you get into a power struggle with them, you need to clean it up. You need to clean up the blocks now. It is time to clean them up. What's going to happen if you just keep it that? They're going to end up probably here, right? And they might eventually surrender if you threaten them enough. If you say, you're going to lose recess. If you don't clean those blocks up, you don't get to go to recess today. That's it. You don't get recess. You're going to miss out on that. You're going to miss out on Fun Friday. You're going to miss out on everything this week if you don't clean these blocks up. Pretty soon they might comply. But did they ever learn the skill of why they didn't clean it up in the first place? Why might they not clean them up? They don't want to be done. You are having so much fun playing and it's so hard to be done. Exactly. They don't want to be done playing. If we look at them from the lens of they're just lazy. They're just lazy. And you know what? They might be. They might be a little lazy. It's not helpful to look at them through this lens. So it's not to say they're not, because there are some kids that are like, I don't have to clean up at home. I'm not cleaning up here, right? But it's not helpful if we look at them through that lens. Because if we look at them through that lens, it's going to trigger our stuff. Our CD-ROM's going to come online. So I'm glad you said that. So they don't want to be done playing. How do you validate that? Or what is the emotional state? I just gave it to you. What does the emotional state need? Validation and connection. You were having so much fun playing. You were having so much fun playing and you don't want to be done. Let's look at the schedule over here. We have playtime again this afternoon, so you can play again, but right now we need to be done. Do you want to pick up that block first or that one first? Which one do you want to pick up? I'm going to help you, and you're validating. And you are going to do a little bit of the broken record, but the reason you're doing this is you're trying to stay as much as possible in your prefrontal cortex, in your executive state, because you know that you are going to be able to help this child if you can stay here. If you start going into if you get engaged in a power struggle, you're here, and pretty soon you guys are going to end up here. And it's a hard shift because your CD-ROM's going to come online. Well, they should clean up these toys. They should do this. They should know how to do this by now, and they're just being lazy. Or I frequently hear, they just want my attention. All they want is attention right now. And the truth is, they might want your attention. But if you look at it from that lens, you're going to respond in a way that isn't as helpful. This is the tricky part. And a lot of it is if you own your own buttons, or if you're aware of them, then you can respond. So many of us, here's the catch, many of us were punished for not having these executive skills, which is why there are buttons. So we can't lend what we don't have, which is what I was just talking about. And that when we're stressed, we lose access to those thinking. So we have a slide that talks about that our own thoughts, our own trigger thoughts blind us to the real problem. So we might not be able to see, oh, that kid's having a hard time because they were having so much fun and they don't know how to be done. They don't know how to feel, they don't know how to handle like sad. I'm sad, playtime's over. I'm mad, playtime's over. They don't know how to handle that. Sometimes just a transition is a trigger for kids. I see that a lot. And if you think back to the brain, the early experiences for these kids, if they are from a home where it's not consistent and the grown-ups, and in their brain is hardwired of, no, you're not safe, no, you're not safe. If all of a sudden in school they're like, okay, now we're going to go to this. That's going to trigger something in their brain that's going to set all of their cortisol levels through the roof. And that's what you're seeing when you have kids that all of a sudden I do a contract with Head Start, and we have a little guy who has early childhood trauma, and every single transition, it'll be like, the teacher is phenomenal. She will do every single thing to, okay, 5 minutes, we're gonna do, every visual she can to get everybody ready for the transition, and it doesn't matter. At the minute everybody starts to move to do the next thing, he's up, he's out the door. And he can't help it, it's completely unconscious, but it's just, that's his trauma response. So, okay, you guys have been sitting a really long time, so I'm gonna come back to this. I'm gonna take a break a little bit early. This time we're gonna do a song called the Wadaliacha. Okay, slap your knees and clap your hands.
Snap your right hand and your left.
You're snapping. Okay, this trick is tricky. Grab your nose with your right hand, grab your ear with your left. Now do the other one. Now go faster. Doodle-doo. Good Come on, Lisa. that was another cross the midline kind of song. So welcome back. I know I gave you a lot of heavy stuff, but I have to just go back to a couple of things. Okay. So we were talking about the executive state, right, and the skills that we need in our executive state. And when we're stressed, we lose access to these skills, right? So if you think about attention, an example of that would be, have you ever been reading and then you read the same paragraph over and over again? It's an example of you having some stressed out executive skills. Time management, running late, impulse control, whoopsies, messing up, flexibility, my way or the highway. Actually, can I have my brain come back up here real quick? Welcome, new executive lens. No, you're fine. I just need your oops. So here's an example, too, which is so beautiful. In the executive state, hold up your oops. We can handle oops, right? And we can say, oh, whoopsies, I made a mistake. And then we can handle it. Or we might say, gosh, I need to slow down. I'm talking too fast, and it didn't make sense what I just said, or something like that, right? So you can be regulated enough to own your own stuff. But when you're here, you might blame, gosh, if you wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have made this mistake.
It's your fault.
Seriously, it's all your fault. And if you're here, you got 3 skills, right? I don't know. I give up. I'm quitting. I'm done. I'm done with this job. I'm quitting. I'm not going to do it anymore, right? I can't do this. I'm not going to play volleyball. I have no athletic ability. I quit. Right? So it's just something I thought I would point out too. So you can be upset, mad, sad, scared, and you can still be in your executive state. You can feel those feelings and be aware of them. So feelings are felt, but they're not taking over you and dictating your behavior. Okay, you guys can sit down. Thank you. I might have you come up one more time, but thank you. So when stressed, as we talked about earlier, our buttons get pushed, right? So we're talking about these. Think of the kids that you work with, and what are things they do that push your buttons. And then we downshift into our lower centers of our brain. Usually, the things that trigger us are our guilt hotspots or wounds from childhood. It's all of our stuff is really what's going to impact the way we react to things. And it's so important because this is sort of the essence of conscious discipline too, is that you have to make change in the adult first in order to help children change. And that is the big difference. So remember that very first triangle I showed you, and I talked about the bottom foundation being the brain state model, and then it's the 7 powers of conscious adults. No one can make you angry without your permission, that kind of stuff. And then it's the building the school family. These are the structures the adults can create in their classroom to help children be more likely to learn. And then at the very top is the skills that we learn and the interventions that we use with children. And that's really, really important, because if we don't own our own stuff and be aware of what's going on in us, we really can't help kids. We can't lend what we don't have. So if we're constantly being triggered and our buttons are being pushed all day long by the kids, we're not going to be able to help them learn. So let's talk a little bit about this. So let's say you have kids. I mean, we talked earlier that how many of you have some tricky kids in your class? Yeah. And I said earlier, it's scary. It is absolutely terrifying when children are completely out of control in your classroom, right? And if you feel like you don't know what to do, right? So that's the thing too. When Linda coordinates the School Link program for our elementary and middle school and high school program. High school too? Middle school. And then I do early childhood. And so a lot of times we're talking with our staff about when they come in to provide support to the teachers, that we talk a little bit about what state is the teacher in. And if the teacher's in their survival state, what do they need? Well, sometimes they just need, I'm with you. You're not in this alone. Like, I will help you, right? Isn't that what you need? If you have a kid throwing things in your room, sometimes you just need to. So trying to remember that too, because I'm sure you all work on cooperative teams, right? Nobody works alone in this. Like, we all have somebody or some team, especially in special education. Am I right? Please tell me I'm right. Okay. And so thinking about that, what do we all need? Because we're all in this together. And then once we feel safe, helping to validate each other's experience. So if you come home from work again and you say, oh my gosh, it's so hard, or if you went to your administrator and said, I don't know what to do. I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. If they just threw a bunch of skills at you, that probably wouldn't be very helpful. You probably need some validation of, you're really trying hard. I can tell you're really doing the best you can, blah, blah, blah. And then you might be regulated enough to take in some skills. And I bring that up because it's important to know what's going on in us, because we can't change what we don't know. So, the triggered brain goes straight to the past. If you were brought up in a home where if you spilled milk, you got beat, or you got yelled at, or you got punished, kid spills milk, you're going to go there first, unless you consciously choose to respond differently. A non-trigger brain can stay present. So, like if for Lori, she didn't get yelled at as a child for spilling milk, so if somebody spills a milk, she might be able to be like, oh, whoopsies, next time try to be more careful, and she could stay calm, where I might be like, what are you doing now, right? Depending on what our experiences are. So the reason this is important is that our trigger thoughts blind us to the real problems of kids. I'm sorry I keep coming back to this, but I love that she brought up maybe they were sad that playtime was over, versus they should know to clean up when it's done. They're lazy. Those kids are lazy. Not that anyone said that, but we could pretend they did, right? Because the way you respond is going to be so different. And if you know that that's a trigger for you, okay, performance area at 10 o'clock. It's in a couple minutes. If you know that that's something that triggers you, being aware of it is really helpful, because then you can respond differently. So, take back your power. I know we saw this one earlier, the little marionette puppet. Own your own upset. Own your own stuff. Whoever you believe to be in charge of your feelings, you have placed in charge of you. So if you think, oh, if these kids would just behave, I'd be fine, you've given all your power away to the kids. And it's going to be really hard to stay regulated enough to opt to stay in your executive state. So know your triggers. I want you just to take a minute to think about this, and we'll just kind of do this quietly. Kind of what are your things? Is like I had already identified whining. Me. Yes. Talking back, blaming, pouting. I also, so in our day treatment, I'm sorry, I'm going to reference this a lot, but one of the things we have built in is this check-in and check-out so that our staff can feel supported, because we really feel like together we're parenting these kids with really bad behaviors, and that we have to be a united front, and we have to all be on the same page. And one day I was helping out, and I used to be in there every day, and now I'm doing more of this kind of stuff, I'm not in there every day, and so I was helping out, and one of the staff, I was going in we have the motor room and we do little stations, and I know that it's really important for kids that they get the same message, because the minute they get the idea that I don't know what's going on, that sends their safety stuff out of control, and then things can get out of control, right? And so I said to the other staff, okay, you were here yesterday, what was the motor room? What was it set up to be? And she was like, I don't know. And so then we've got a kid in there who's got big behaviors, and she was like, Miss Annie, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what's going on in here. And I didn't realize at the moment, but it triggered me. So then I start using a loud voice with her, and then the other person was kind of like, why don't you let me handle it, and kind of stepping in. And so at the moment, I didn't realize that I got triggered into my brainstem, because in my head, I'm thinking, I'm not safe. These kids are going to rule the roost. I don't know what's going on, blah. And then you can send yourself spinning. But it helped to have somebody else that I trusted to kind of step in for me. And it just took that awareness of, oh, whoopsies, I need to get it back together, and then take a deep breath, I can handle it. And so that's kind of the idea behind this, that we're in this together and helping each other out, but you got to be willing to own your stuff. Does that make sense? So look at this list, kind of just think, and write down a few things that are kind of your triggers, your buttons. Chances are, if you were to look back at the list we made earlier about your CD-ROM, they're probably related. So the degree from which you have personal power is going to determine your action, like I kind of have already talked about again. So when you're looking at it from this lens, I can choose, right? How can I help them? How can I help them choose? When you're looking at it from this lens, they should feel bad for what they did. They should know better than this by now. I've taught this to them enough. They just want attention. They're manipulating. Anything that has a judgment in front of it is usually coming from this, and chances are your buttons are being pushed. Get him out of here. Get him out of my classroom. I don't want him in here anymore. Now, sometimes children's behaviors are so big that being in a general ed classroom isn't the most appropriate setting for them. But if you're coming at it from how can I help them and everyone in this, how can I help them feel safe? What can I do to have structures in my classroom so kids feel safe? The administration should do something about this. This kid needs to be in special ed. They should do something. Get him out, I'm done. Or I'm leaving my job. Same thing. The kid still maybe isn't appropriate in the classroom, but the way you come about it is going to be different. Does that make sense?
In your experience, which is, and I know that we move through these states all the time, but for kids who are more blue versus more red, which is the harder, longer recovery path?
Oh, that's a really good question. So for a person that has had pretty healthy attachment experiences and that their chemicals are pretty even-steven, it takes about 20 minutes for, like, if your cortisol levels go zing through the roof, it takes about 20 minutes to come back down. So if you're thinking about these kids that come from chronically, like from trauma, or come from homes that are not safe and scary, and they might come in and it's going to take them a lot. They're going to spend much of their time in their survival state. And so they're going to need extra interventions and structures that speak to that state. And sometimes even just looking at it from that lens is going to help you as the adult see them through that lens. And there are some kids too, I know in early childhood when I met with that team, we talked about, we have one little friend from our day treatment that goes to the early childhood center right now. And there's some kids that might have some in utero exposure or other stuff going on in their brains that sometimes all you can do is create a safe place for them to be for that day, because that's where their brain is at. And so that's really important about this, is really meeting kids where they're at. And knowing that a child that has experienced more trauma is going to be pushed to their brainstem more often, because that's how their brain is wired. However, with that said, what we believe, and what I really believe with my heart and soul, is that if we can help them wire new neural pathways, if we can help them have different experiences where they're not pushed into their brainstem even further, we are going to be doing them a heck of a lot of good in the long run. And we might not see the results of that by third grade, but we have to believe that at some point it will be better, and that we're giving them enough love that they're going to be able to make it through and become the people we hope they'll become. And that's really, we have to hold on to that in day treatment a lot, because it's sad. All of those kids have very sad, sad stories. And we don't always change the home environment. We try, and sometimes we do. But you can only do what you can do. And our whole agency strongly believes in that family, working with systems, and that we don't just work with kids, we work with the entire family system. But it takes a lot for people to own their stuff and to be aware of their experiences. And like I said earlier, many of these people that have the most needs are the ones having more children, truth be told. So it's tricky. It's a tricky system. Did that answer your question? I kind of went around it a little bit. Did that?
I think the other part of it was in terms of, the length of recovery, months, years, whatever, which is...
Oh, I see. Like in terms of how, so to wire new neural pathways, it takes 2,000 times in context, the same thing. That's a lot. So like the same situation in context 2,000 times a corrective experience for it to really stick in their brain, which is a lot. So a balanced brain begins with safety. And this is a little reminder of so many of our interventions jump to skills. We jump to teaching the skill. Oh, breathe. You need to do your breathing. Do your frog breathing right now. Do your turtle breathing. Which is a great skill to learn, but not when a kid's in their survival state. If I went up to my survival state, just do your breathing. Do your breathing. Come on, let's do your breathing. What's going to happen? That's going to ramp them up even more, right? I can tell my emotional state to do which breathing would you like to do? Your body is so worked up. Which breathing do you want to do? But here, this state just needs me to, I have to be the state I want her to be. You're safe. You are safe here. You may not hit me and I will not hit you. I will not hurt you here. I mean what I say. That's how I keep you safe. Do you hear my voice? You're safe, you're safe, you're safe. No, that's not, so it's not in the words. It's in the tone you're using. And what you're doing is you're attuning. This is where it's beautiful. So we talk about that baby attuning, the mom and baby attuning to each other. You're attuning to your dysregulated kids. And you're sitting with it. And what you have to do first is what I'm going to talk about, self-calming first. That you have to calm yourself down first, because it is scary. It's terrifying when a child is dysregulated and they're coming at you. It's scary. So a balanced brain begins with safety, not skills. So without safety, without feeling safe and connected, we cannot access the thinking parts of the brain. We cannot teach them new skills. It's miscommunicated. So this is going to sound totally basic, but it's really important. Becky Bailey talks about teaching kids to be a star. And we talk a lot about being a star. And that basically what that is stop, take a deep breath, and relax. And what you're doing when you breathe in is you are disengaging your own stress response. So I know all this yoga business and yoga calm, and it's all true, it's all good stuff, because what it does is it keeps you regulated. And sometimes and if you say, let's say you have a dysregulated kid, sorry Lori, come on back up, and she's really mad and she's wanting to fight me, and I'm like, I'd probably step back and I'd say, here, punch this over here. And they might punch it or she might not. And I don't know what your restraint policy is and all that, so we won't even go there. But at some point, keep breathing, you can handle this. Keep breathing, now tell me to shut up. You can handle it. Shut up! Oh, but then she said shut up, and guess what? Now she's talking, which means she's in her emotional state. So that's good, even though she's telling me to shut up. That's good, though, because then I can say, you're really mad.
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're safe. So I have to read her now. So if I see that's agitating her more, if I say you're really mad and then that agitates her more, then I might take a few breaths in, because I'm trying to attune, just like you attune to a baby. Does everyone know what I mean by attunement? Okay. So you're trying to really try to gauge, what does she need?
Stupid.
You're so mad at me right now, I know. And my button might be like, don't you call me stupid. Don't you ever, that is disrespectful, right? So I gotta check that.
You're stupid.
Yeah. So just so you know, side note, so once she's regulated, I might go back and I might say, you were really mad earlier, and I noticed I might not shame her and be like, you called me stupid, but I might say, when you're mad, you can say, I don't like that you're doing this, or I need space, and you might teach her the appropriate skills. But in the moment, I want to give her the corrective language. You're really angry right now. You're really mad. And then you want to give two choices and see if you can either you can go to the safe spot or you can go sit down. Which do you want to do? Because you're mad. I can see it all over your face.
I'm gonna go over here.
Yeah, go take a break over there. You did it. I'll come check on you in a few minutes, okay?
You're stupid.
I know. You're really mad still. Okay. Now here's another thing. So you can sit down. Thank you. So there's a lot more to this than just the brain state model, and a lot of these things that the next layer of the triangle is these 7 powers of conscious adults. And for each power of conscious adults, there's a structure you can use in your classroom. And in the end, I'm going to show you a website that'll show you all of these things. But in true conscious discipline, what you would have in your classroom is you would have structures built in that could meet the need of all the kids that come in. So there'd be a safe spot for when kids are upset. And then you'd have meaningful jobs and and then you would have meaningful jobs, and one of the jobs might be the star helper. And the star helper might come up and they might say, Lori's having a really hard time, let's all breathe. And the star helper might say, breathe with me, and lead the group. Or they have this beautiful, wonderful thing called Wish Well, which is, if you do anything in your classroom and you're interested in this, I encourage you to do this. The Wish Well is where they use like a pizza pan, and they have pictures of all the kids, and there's a heart in the middle. And if someone's missing, you put their picture in the middle, and then everybody puts their hands on their hearts. They take a deep breath and they wish their friend well, and then you sing, we wish you well, all through today. And it sounds totally like, oh, that's so sweet and lovey-dovey, but really what's happening is you're creating this coherent heart. You're creating, you want to teach the skill of empathy, there it is. And you're not only that, but you're teaching this idea of you matter, and we're all in this together. So, and another thing in day treatment, when we have kids having, big behaviors many times a day, we will stop and we'll have our wish well helper stand up. We all put our hands on our hearts. We wish you well all through the day today. We wish you well. And the idea is that we're not judging you as the bad kid in the corner. Oh, Lori's having another meltdown. No, we wish her well. And then we use her as an example. Lori taught the rest of us how to handle mad. That was so helpful to our classroom. So, there's a lot more to this than what I'm giving you today. So I just wanted to let you know that it isn't just a matter of you're safe or anything like that. So smile, take a deep breath, and relax. That's your first cue. So our job as teachers, educators, is to be the elevator operator. So we want to help kids if they come into school in their survival state, we want to help upshift them to the thinking parts of their brain. With each level, the kid becomes more organized. So active calming first. Stop, take a deep breath, relax, keep breathing. You can handle this. And you're telling yourself this too. So when a kid is in their survival state, having a meltdown, you might use the words, you might say smile, or you might say breathe, keep breathing, you can handle this. Because you're saying it, yep, Annie, you can handle this. You're going to be okay. And then the emotional state needs validation and connection, right? And then the executive state is where problem solving can happen. So I talked a little bit about this already. So I'm safe, keep breathing, I can handle this. I talked about mirror neurons already. Oh, I forgot this piece though. So I talked about mirror neurons as being the state you want the child to be, and that behind our eyes we have. And so one of the things when a child is really dysregulated, if you can catch their eyes, that would help. That doesn't mean you go, look at me in the eye, come on, because that's not going to be helpful. But you might go, oh, your arm went like this. Or you might just go, oh, and they're going to look at you. You're safe, you can handle it. You might do something like that. Kids on the autism spectrum, their mirror neurons are not, and I don't know if they're not connected or if they don't have them, to be completely honest with you, but they don't have that ability, and that's why they don't read social cues. They're not going to pick that up the same way. So they're going to need a different intervention. They're going to need more visuals and things like that to help with that piece as you're calming down. Trying to help them calm down. So look at this picture. Take it in. Now look at that one. Did you feel yourself change at all? Like just a little change in your brain? I'll do it again. From this to this. That's your mirror neurons. I'm not going to make you do this either. So, again, if a child is in their survival state, they're only asking the question, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? And the kids in this state, they're kicking, they're screaming, they're not really verbal. They're not using words. They're completely dysregulated. They're running away. They're crying, right? The emotional state is asking the question, am I loved? Am I loved? And the emotional state needs validation and connection. So if you could build in rituals throughout your day that connect children, that connect you with the children. One of the things, and I'll show you Schubert's classroom in a second, and it talks about having a good morning greeting. And I'm sure you guys do a lot of these things already, because this isn't all new information. I mean, I've seen enough in schools where teachers do this kind of stuff. Okay. Oh, these are just giving some examples of how to kind of help. There you are, to kind of get them to look at you so you can download your inner state to them. Now, that's not to say that that's going to be, like if you have a kid ripping up the room, if you go, there you are, that's not going to stop them. And quite honestly, when a child is pushed to the point of ripping up a room, it's rage at that point, and rage needs energy, needs movement. So in the best case scenario, and I don't want to get too caught up in the details of what do we do with this kid or that kid, because this is really about owning your own stuff first, but just as a side note, if a kid's in a rage, they need a space, they need movement. So if you can get them to a gym to run around, or if you can get them somewhere so they can get it because it's really hard to bring a kid, because rage is even beyond the survival state. Another something that's beyond the survival state, which is really sad and probably happens more often than you realize, is something called dissociating. Dissociating, does anyone know what that is? You guys know what I'm talking about, dissociation? And it's basically like whatever's happening in the moment is too overwhelming to the child's psyche, and so they've checked out. So it's different than daydreaming, but it doesn't look that different than daydreaming. So in day treatment, we have a lot of, and actually I can think of parents we work with too, that you bring something up and it's like the survival stuff goes out and off in their brain and they are out, they're checked out. And so part of our job is to help bring them back and ground them and keep them present. And in day treatment, we do a lot of, oh, there you are, trying to bring them back to here and now, because we don't want them to cope like that. Because then what happens is, these are the people that end up with personality disorders or dissociative identity disorder, and we don't want that, because that's not coping, that's not being in the moment. It's basically the thought of being present in that moment is so overwhelming to their psyche that they can't handle it.
It's like internal flight almost.
Yeah, it's internal flight, exactly, yes. And so all the more reason, if we were to do punishment, if we came from a punitive, those kids have no chance. And you talk about the victim on our video that we watched, there it is, internalizing. And what's scary about these kids is they're not the ones that are getting referred because they're quiet and they're like this. So we need connection. Those kids need to feel safe and connected so that we can help them as well. I kind of went on a side note there, sorry about that. Okay, I'm not gonna have us do this either. Okay. So an emotional state responds to empathy and choices. So I have to say though, start with validation. So if you're talking about the emotional state here, they need the validation. You were really upset that this happened. You didn't want to clean up the toys. You were having so much fun at recess. It was really hard. Do you want to pick up the blue blocks or the red blocks first? Which would you like to do? And if they go, neither, I don't want to do either, I'd go back to validating. And so it's hard to make a choice. It's hard when it's time to go. Do you want to do the red block or the blue block? And let's say that they do that for a really long time. They might miss out on some of recess, but you're not using it as held over their head. Oh, you're going to miss recess. But you might say, would you like to do this right now, or do you want to do it during recess for a few minutes? You're still giving them a choice. You're not. It's the lens from which you're viewing. You with me? Yeah? And I think a lot of times we jump to choices before we validate, and you really have to validate. And then the minute they make the choice, you did it. Oh, that was so helpful. You know why you say that? Because the minute you say you did it, the dopamine goes yahoo in their brain. And we want that. We want the good stuff, because they get a lot of the stress hormones, so we want the good stuff going on. So offering empathy in an emotional situation teaches children how to regulate themselves. So in day treatment, I keep using stories from there, but it's fine. I can remember the day that, because usually when the kids come in, they've been kicked out of multiple settings. I remember with this group that is now in kindergarten, not here, when they started having more age-appropriate social interactions, and it was so beautiful. And I remember one of the girls that was in our program it's like she was fighting with another girl over something, and she came in the safe spot and she was crying and she was so upset. And this is a child that when she first came in, I thought she was a feral child, honestly. Like, she would be stuffing things in her butt. She just, like she couldn't regulate for anything. And like, you could just see that there was such trauma, like with food and with all these things. So anyway, so here she is. She's mad because her friend wouldn't share the doll she wanted with her or something. And she's got big crocodile tears, crying. And then I was like, oh, you're feeling really mad and your face is going like this. And you really wanted that doll and you didn't have the words. And she's like, I wanted the doll. And you could just see her, like, she got it and she got the words, and she could say, I wanted to play with the doll and she wouldn't share with me, and I'm so sad about it. And just to even help her know, like, I could tell that she knew she wasn't in trouble. She knew she wasn't bad, and that she could feel sad about that. And it's okay to be sad when someone takes your toy from you and you're 4 years old and you really wanted to play with it. But helping her kind of work through that. And that's so important. And our kids are missing those great opportunities, because what would happen in her home setting if she pushed somebody because they took a doll from her is she'd get sent to her room and she'd, maybe get spanked or whatever, and never learn the skills that she needed. Does that make sense? And it's kind of empowering too when you think about your own, this whole process of like looking at your own triggers or looking at your own buttons. There's something empowering about being like, yeah, I'm this way because that's how I was brought up. And that doesn't villainize your parents. It's just, it is what it is. And it kind of takes it off you. Like, you know what I mean? Makes you more human, I guess. So, okay. So empathetic interactions teach that if you make poor choices, you are still loved. You're not a bad kid. If you get upset, you're not bad. If you're mad, you're not bad. Everyone can be happy, sad, mad, whatever. A lot of adults can't do this. How many adults have learned really poor coping with these emotions that are uncomfortable? It's because a lot of us were punished for not having executive skills. So, conflict is an opportunity to teach missing skills. So I'm going to show a couple of videos, and then I'm going to give you guys some time for questions.
This is road sign number 1, difficult temperament interventions. In this, you have learned what the red flags are. Now, let's learn some interventions. Red flag number 1 is a difficult temperament. Children with difficult temperaments are hard to parent and hard to care for. Good parenting requires following the lead of the child. However, if you follow the lead of a difficult temperament child, they may lead you down a road of developmental difficulties. As children grow, developmental tasks stack on themselves like building blocks. Success and mastery at one level will predict success and mastery at another level. Each lays the foundation for the next layer of development. For example, how a child negotiates their relationship with their earliest caregivers lays the foundation for how they will negotiate their relationship with their peers and possibly significant others later in life. During the first 3 years of life, children lay the foundation for many things, but in regard to our discussion, 2 major things. One is connection, which connection means how do you negotiate and manage the relationship. And 2, self-regulation. How do you negotiate and manage arousal, upset, and stress? These foundations are laid through a process called attachment with your caregivers. For healthy, secure attachment, babies need to be seen. And what that means is we need to understand what's going on or help them understand what's going on inside them. For example, you might say, it's hard to wait. I'm making that food, you're doing it, it's hard, you can handle it. As opposed to, I'm cooking as fast as I can. I can't take this crying. Children need to be soothed instead of going, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. Here, look at here, you're okay, you're okay. We would actually hold them and download our calm to them. Children need to be safe. We need to respond to their emotional distress with caring and soothing and compassion instead of, I can't stand it anymore, I can't stand this. And they need to be stimulated. We need to play face-to-face, wonderful peekaboo and patty cake with our babies. We would go round and round the tummy goes the choo-choo train. Choo-choo, 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 tickle under there. So they need to be seen, soothed, safe, and stimulated. Children with difficult temperaments make it hard to do those 4 things. It's hard to see them or understand what's going on inside them when they're so chronically upset. Every little thing gets them fussing and crying. And what happens is when they're born, their nervous system is unbalanced. It's almost like they're on a high-speed clacker like this. Now, for a typical child, it would be like this, a nice, steady beat. But for difficult temperaments, now you can imagine me trying to talk over this, focus over this, learn over this, and soothe myself, and go to sleep and eat. It makes it very, very difficult. So what we want to do as caregivers, when a child gets emotionally aroused like this, we want to do something to the child to bring it from this down to one of those is active calming, which I showed you before. So if the child's, no, 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 we don't want to go, stop it, not one more time, because what's happening is we will take this and make it this. Again, setting off on a difficult developmental track. Watch this next video of a mother soothing a very difficult tempered child.
Banana, banana, banana. It's hard when you want to go to sleep and it's time to eat. That's hard. That's hard. You can do it. Oh, you're ready to do something else. Good for you. You know it's not quite time, but you know that we'll get to it. You can handle it.
So to see difficult children, we have to know how much is too little and how much is too much. So even when we were going to play round and round the tummy goes the choo-choo train, this child may already be fussing, so that's too fast, that's too much. Round and round. If the child's kind of looks like they're lethargic and their clacker's going, we might have to go, oh, round and around the tummy, round and around the tummy. So how much is too much and how much is too little? And we constantly have to correct that for the child. We also have to provide the be safe. Setting limits on difficult temperament children is hard because every limit requires emotional arousal. Remember, they're already operating like this. So all we have to do is say no, and it goes. So we have to say, yes, you can, after lunch. Yes, you can, after you put your seatbelt on. Yes, we can, as soon as we get that diaper changed. We also need to focus vigilantly on what we want the children to do, as opposed to stop crying, don't run, don't spit your food. We want to say, wipe your little food. I'm going to wipe your food out. I'm going to help you calm down. I'm going to hold your hand. Instead of don't touch me, don't hit me, I'll hold your little hand. I'll show you how to touch me softly. We also then need to play as many possible face-to-face games with just the right amount, not too much, not too little, with our babies. And this will be difficult to do, but we must do it because the eye contact, the touch, my presence in this playful situation is how we wire the child's brain for impulse control for the rest of their life. And they get little joy juice, we call it. A little combination of dopamine, endorphins, and oxytocin. We'll just call it joy juice that literally provides for optimal brain development. So these interventions will get you started with your difficult temperament children. Don't let these red flags pass by as a phase. They are indeed red flags, and you can do something about it.
I wanted to share that video because I think it's still important, because a lot of times, either developmentally or emotionally, some of your kids, especially in early childhood, they might be functioning at 12 months, 18 months. And so in day treatment, we do a lot of this stuff, and we do try to modulate that you know, doing those connecting activities and doing those little like back and forth, almost like what you might call baby games. And a lot of times the work we're doing in the home with parents is helping them learn things like Becky Bailey has a book called I Love You Rituals, and helping them learn how to do these little I love you rituals. Because again, if you never got that, you can't give what you don't have. And so helping parents learn this and why that's so important to the emotional development of the children. So that's why I'm sharing that one. So I'm going to show you one more and maybe another one, we'll see. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about this stuff on the, I'm going to kind of show you the website because I think it's important. So the next one is for 3 to 5-year-olds, and then if we don't have time, it's under here, and I'll show you the other ones later.
Road sign number 2 is difficulty playing with friends. This is 3 to 5-year-olds. And this is going to show you some red flags. This is not a phase these children go through. It is literally a red flag. Now, during the preschool years, play is brain food. Playing with adults, playing with peers, playing with blocks, imaginative play, dress up in Spider-Man. They need to play with their friends. Children with difficult temperaments and having early stressors in the 0 to 3 years have difficulty playing. They may be the one who would choose to knock down the block someone else built, then have the inner resources to build their own tower. All preschoolers need help learning how to take turns, get what they want without using aggression, and interplay. But children with difficult temperaments need additional support to do this. They will need help asking for a turn.
Oh, Alex, it looks like Chris wishes that was not a part of the road. And Chris, did you like it? Okay, tell Alex, use your big voice. Say, Alex, I don't like it when you draw on the road.
I don't like it when you draw.
Next time, ask me first.
Next time.
Are you willing to ask first? Yes? Okay, say, I can do that. Yeah.
They will need help entering the play of others. Can I play with you?
We want to get Chris's attention, so the safe way to get his attention is tap, say his name, and wait for him to look. Say, Chris. Wait for him to look. Try again. Say, Chris. You look. Say, may I play?
Yeah, I play.
Oh, it worked. He said yes. He said yes. And look, your feelings change. Your mouth's going up like this.
They will need help calming themselves down and may need to be taught in many, many imaginative ways.
Kendall, the baby is wailing and sobbing.
When you see children having difficulty playing with others in that 3rd through 5th year of life, this is a red flag and you can do something about it. Start right now utilizing the skills you've seen in this video and seek additional information from the resources we're providing you.
So sweet with the baby, right? So we, one of her interventions that she uses is something called baby doll circle time. And the idea is that what you offer to others, you strengthen in yourself. So sort of that wish well, if you offer empathy to others, you're strengthening your own good stuff, right? So it's that same thing with babies. And so we take, in day treatment, we take baby dolls and we do this baby doll circle time and we nurture the babies and we powder the baby. And a lot of the kids, their first, because most of them have not had great attachment experiences, and so they want to punch the babies and they want to take the baby's diaper off and do, you know, who knows what with the babies. And so we're offering them these corrective experiences. No, babies are safe in here. babies like this. We're going to go round and round the garden, crisscross. And we do these I love you rituals with the babies so that because what you offer to others, you strengthen in yourself. And it is so sweet. It's so sweet, but it's also so good for their brains to be provided these corrective experiences. So I noticed in one of my Head Start classes, one of the sensory centers or one of the play centers was a sensory table with water and toothbrushes and babies. And that was such a good idea too. I don't know if you guys ever do that, but I thought that was so sweet to help them like bathe the babies and take care of the babies. So we have about 20 minutes left. I want to show you a little bit on this website, and then if you guys want to watch one more, I'll show it. Otherwise, I can answer questions. I know you guys have been sitting here. It's a lot of information to take in, and so I don't want to overwhelm you either. I know it's been heavy stuff all day. But this is the Conscious Discipline website. I want to show you Schubert's School. So this is for more of you that work in elementary. This would be helpful to you. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to show you all these different structures. And the website is www.consciousdiscipline.com. So it's going to show you all these different areas. And so like, I don't know, let's say hallway, for example. Now, are you guys do you guys have PBIS, or is it do you have any district-wide behavior zones is kind of your, okay. I just didn't know if you guys were PBIS. Okay, so basically if you select which one you're interested in, like this is the hallway. Why is it not showing up here? Is it working again? Okay, so in the hallway, all these little stars are going to show you different structures that are a part of, like, for example, the kindness tree. And then you can scroll down, and it's going to talk a little bit about what does that mean? What is that structure? And then it's going to show you pictures of examples of what that might look like. And then a how-to, and this is the cool part, is then it'll show you a video of somebody using that structure. And so have at it. I mean, if this interests you, look at it, and it's got some really great ideas. What I want to show my early childhood people is this Sophie's Classroom. And Sophie's Classroom is specific for early childhood or preschool. And there's things like the safe place. I do want to caution you on one thing. Here I am throwing a lot of tools at you, right? And so I want to remind you of the triangle, that you really need the foundation, and then you need to have kind of the powers of conscious adults, because I don't want you to go try these things and be like, well, that didn't work. This conscious discipline stuff doesn't work. That's my fear, because it does work. And there's research to show that it does work, but it's an entire different way of looking at things. But one of the structures is the safe place, and that's different than a timeout. And if you don't have all the other structures in place and the language and it could easily turn into a timeout, and then it's lost its purpose. So that's all. That's my only caution. Also, there's all these videos like I talked about. I won't make you watch this today, but under Parents' Favorites, there's one called Connections, and it will make you cry, but it's beautiful. This guy, DJ, he was in high school. He used to be a gang member in LA, I think it's in LA. And he was in high school, and he went to a high school that used conscious discipline. And he now speaks for conscious discipline. And he talks about his journey and how, if you have time, I encourage you to watch one of these too. Like, he talks about how he went into his English class and his teacher gave him this special job of being the greeter, and how that was the first time that he really connected with I mean, it's, there's always a story about when you hear of these kids that how, despite whatever their circumstances are, that they made it and they ended up being okay. It's usually because there was someone along the way that nurtured that and that they connected with. So that's kind of what I wanted to leave you with in terms of the resources and stuff. Does anyone have questions? You guys are all just taking it in? Do you guys want, yeah?
We developed a little safe spot in our classroom, but it's very small compared to who came to visit. And we do use that, but we don't, we have other children in the classroom, and what is the best way to handle when, so if a child is in survival or actually even in the rage state, is it best to just clear the room? One day I cleared the room, Maggie kept working with the child and her care professionals, but, it's always, and sometimes we carry on in this one part of the room. It's just hard when you have classrooms with multiple things going on and not just a treatment room.
Right. I think it depends on what's going to help everyone maintain their composure the most. So if it's rage needs movement. So if it's a child that's in a rage, I mean, if there would be a way to get that child to a larger area that they can run, great. And I know there's rules too on because what Becky Bailey would say is that you would do a hold, and you guys can't do that, can you? Can you are you CPI trained or no? Yeah. Okay, so in day treatment, we do CPI holds because what's happening is when a kid is ripping up a room, they are so out of control. And so what you're gonna do, my angry, upset client, is I'm not teaching you how to do CPI, by the way, I'm just giving you an example. So you're gonna let me hold you. Oh, sorry, crisis prevention intervention. And it's holds, but there's a lot of language that happens before you get to this place, just so you know. You don't just run it in.
But we know we're trained in the district that that's our last resort, and we try to prevent getting.
Yes. But some kids that have, especially kids that have significant trauma, this is where they are. So when they're fighting you and kicking you and you're really mad, you're safe, I won't let you hurt me and you may not hurt me and I will not hurt you. You're safe. Because really what they need, sorry, you can go sit down now. What they need, and for the little ones, if you can cradle them at all, and sometimes they're in their brainstem. So think of the baby. Shh, shh, shh. And that's not CPI. For those of but from a mental health perspective, while you're doing CPI, sometimes you might start rocking a little bit and you might go shh, shh, shh. Because what you're doing is you're trying to bring them back. And the thing is their experience has probably been that when they were in they were not, there was no co-regulation going on. It was, you're on your own, or yeah, I'm gonna leave you alone in the crib, or whatever it was so does that make sense? But yeah, rage needs movement, but if you can help kids feel safe, that's the most important thing. And sometimes it's sitting with them during the rage, and that's...
What's difficult in a big building is you go to a place where they can move, and there's long hallways where sometimes then they just run.
And they don't stop.
We go to our therapy gym. We have children scheduled in there.
Yeah.
So then that's
I would bring them there.
So sometimes I'm thinking the best way is just to clear them of the other kids and have them go to a place where we can continue to teach.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, we are in a room, you've seen it, we're in a schoolroom, and so we don't have anywhere to take the kids either, and so we do end up restraining. And then I try as much as I can, if I know they need the movement, I might have them laying on their back, and if I get them to a point where I can come close enough and hold onto their feet, I might push in, or I might, but I want to make sure I stay safe, because it is, as we talked about, it's scary when a kid is so dysregulated, but if I can think of it from the lens of this poor baby that can't regulate. They're so scared right now, and I need them to know they're safe and they're not going to hurt me and I'm not going to hurt them and I can handle it. And part of that is having training and something like CPI, so you have something to fall back on. But yeah.
How long are kids with you for day treatment?
A long time. Usually a year, to be honest with you. And we have found that the kids that the parent, we try really, really, really hard to engage parents, and those are the kids makes sense that we have the most success with. It's really hard when we have kids that the parents are not willing to, we have a attendance policy and stuff like that. It's hard to see the change that we hope to see, but we have to believe that we're doing something good in the long run.
How is that funded?
It's medical insurance. So we bill MA for for day treatment. And right now our day treatment is we have a waiting list. We do offer another plethora of services, though. We do in-home work with families, and we do outpatient trauma work, and we have all kinds of services at FACS and early childhood. And we do in-home work with other ages, too.
And you're located where?
We're located in Mendota Heights. Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions? Yeah?
You mentioned that you offer support in the classroom.
Well, I probably spoke too much. So after I said it, this is part of I was in my executive say, I'm like, oopsies, I probably shouldn't have said that. So, okay, so in early childhood, we work with all districts in Dakota County in early childhood. So that would be preschool. And so if we have a kid, we have a kid in our day treatment, and so Heather has met with, I forgot your name, with Maggie. And so we might, say, here's what's going on in day treatment, and then she's also working in the home with the family, so she might say, we're thinking he's coming from his survival state, blah, blah, blah. Or I know that I have a staff, Betsy, that works with several, one of our Spanish, I don't know, does anyone work with FACS, have early childhood? Okay, and Betsy and Sarah are our staff that mainly work in South St. Paul. And so they were very collateral, so they would call the teacher and say, hey, I'm working with the family in your class, and just want to let you know what we're doing, and then so that you guys can kind of, and if the child's having big behaviors at school, that we could be there to kind of work together to collaborate. So it's more of a consultation type of role. And then in some situations, we might actually come be in the classroom once a week or something like that. But it would only be for early childhood and for kids that we're open with. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One question, I don't want to get into the whole autism thing, we talked about this before, but when you have a child who has a label of ASD, autism spectrum disorder, they develop really strong patterns of behavior, and so then is it harder to get them to shift to another state because maybe they've always just run out of the classroom every time something goes wrong, or they've always hit, and then how do you, do you know that that's just harder then, it takes more repetitions or different ways?
I'm going to be totally, this is an area where I feel like I'm completely out of my realm of expertise. And that's why if we ever get a child that we think is primarily autistic, we refer somewhere else, because I know that because I know they don't have the mirror neurons, and I know there's different interventions, and a lot of times it's visual, but I don't feel like I have the expertise. So I would call Fraser or one of those other agencies that do. Well, thank you. I appreciate you all listening and your time, and hopefully this was helpful.